Welcome everybody to the No Labels, No Walls, We Are One Festival 2020. My name is Markus Vähälä, coming live from Finland, from Kukunori, and welcoming all the audience all around the world. So please join us in the discussion about teachers' unions' role in changing the society positively. So it's been a peculiar year, but that's okay. We have to move forward. And with me today is Cecily Myart-Cruz from Union of Teachers of LA and Mr. Jaakko Salo from the Union of Teachers Finland. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Cecily Myart-Cruz is a teacher, activist, and the United Teachers Los Angeles president, the first woman of color in the union's 50-year history, having previously served as UTLA NAE vice president for 6 years. Cecily has taught for 26 years at both elementary and middle school levels, most recently at Los Angeles Mesa Elementary School. As a UTLA area leader, she has worked with schools, parents, students, and the community to oust 23 bully principals. Cecily has collaborated with school communities, initiating the year-long boycott of district periodic assessments in protest of excessive testing of our students. She is no stranger in taking direct action, whether it is fighting against co-locations, demanding ethnic studies for the students, declaring the end of criminalization of youth, local and statewide lobbying efforts, and much more. And on the other side of the world, Mr. Jaakko Salo from the Trade Union of Education Finland. Jaakko Salo works as the manager for education policy for the Trade Union of Education in Finland. Jaakko's main task is to work as an influencer in the field of education policy. This work contains interaction with politicians, education administration, researchers, and other stakeholders. Jaakko is very often also seen in the Finnish media, giving the trade unions comments on current education issues. Jaakko's task at the union is to analyze the influence of digitalization in education. He also works as a manager for the team of advisors for education policy in general education. Welcome to the show, Jaakko and Cecily. How is life there in LA? What has happened this year, Cecily?
Thank you. Good morning. It's morning time for me. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues, comrades. It is a pleasure to be with you virtually today. What an unprecedented time to speak on the defense of public education. And in order to do so, we must name the crisis moment that we are in. The pandemic, as we all know, has surfaced all of the inequities that we know exist. Right now, we are engaged in conversations about how to safely reopen our schools. First, our school buildings may have closed, but classes remained in session. Schools didn't close, they transferred from in-person to online, an online platform over a weekend, which we can all agree that distance learning in the springtime was just crisis teaching as we all had to respond to the pandemic. The conversations that we're having now about schools should all cause us to take a pause. Educators are being asked to risk their lives, the lives of their students, and all of their families by going back into the classroom. And so let's consider why. Families have to go back to work. They need it. But advocating for education should not be conflated with advocating for childcare. This highlights the lack of infrastructure to support working class families. At the same time, here in the US, they have consistently and systematically defunded our public schools decade after decade, starving us of vital resources for serving students. Now, the US economy is looking to public education to support an economic system that doesn't support the education system or its educators. Teachers don't even make enough to afford rent, let alone buy a home in the communities they serve. And many of them work a second job or have roommates because they cannot afford basic needs like food and shelter. Yet we're being asked to go back into the classroom to help maintain an economic system that doesn't support us or the communities we serve. So at what point do we stop trying to make something out of nothing? We also have to consider the things that we have been fighting for when it comes to eradicating institutional racism in education. Why are we rushing back to maintain a system that has from its inception marginalized and oppressed Black, Indigenous, and people of color? So rather than taking the scraps education has been given and rushing back to maintain an educational system that doesn't support those groups, an economic system that doesn't support working class families, this is the moment to take a stand. We as educators need to stand with Black, Indigenous, and people of color and those communities and working class families to demand more from our government. We need to call on elected leaders to take action and actually support the people they were elected to serve. People's lives are at stake, and an inclusive educational system that represents all of us is on the line. So at what point do we stand up and fight for what's right for all of us? What does that look like nationally, internationally? Well, I'll tell you, it looks like bold actions, national ones, international ones, local fights, state fights that send the message to privatizers, to billionaires, to corporations that workers are uniting across all sectors to say enough is enough and no more. It looks like fighting on all fronts, asking these sector workers to hold national and international governments to demand safe schools. We must demand that our federal governments, that's all of us here, fund us at levels above meager amounts. We can't leave this up to just local taxes and state budgets. We have to demand more, not less. And that's going to take all of us coming together, banding as one. We have got to show up for our communities. We've got to show up for our babies, and we have got to show up for ourselves. We need to stay in the streets and lift our voices nationally and internationally to demand justice. This is our moment to be bold and to actually create the world that our students deserve. Now, I hope that everyone watching today knows and understands that it is going to take all of us to come together across all sectors to do this work. And I hope that you will join with our fight to demand the schools that our students deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecily. We feel you, we feel you. And now, Mr. Jaakko Salo, how's life here in Finland for teachers and students?
This has been very good evening, everyone, or good morning there in Los Angeles. It's evening here in Helsinki. This has been very difficult year for teachers, I think, all around the world. of course, the situation has been very different in other countries, in different countries, but still, it's been very difficult for teachers and people who work at schools, for example. And I think that you could say that in all around the world, the teachers, they have made magic this year, and that's also the situation in Finland. And actually, in Finland, we opened our schools in the May, and then we had the summer break, and now this school here has started with close teaching in schools. And but we are preparing for the second wave of this pandemic, and we have the government has instructed the municipalities and the schools to make preparations for distance learning in the situation if the second wave arrives for the schools. But now the situation in Finland, it's more peaceful, and of course they are testing students and pupils and teachers every day, but still we don't have many cases in school. So they are testing, and testing all the time. It leads to quarantine for a couple of days until you get the results from the test. But then we don't have many cases at schools nowadays. And it's also clear that also in Finland, we have had negative effects from this year's and from the springtime of distance learning. These negative effects, we have those in learning, in well-being, and also in equality, which is one of the cornerstones of our education system in Finland. And you could say that it has been more difficult for those children who don't have the support from their family, and they don't have the same equipment, they don't have the same support from their parents. So it has been more difficult for those children, and proportionally in this group of children. Of course, we have more of those children who come from families which don't have the same education. The parents, they don't have the same education, or they may be unemployed or something, and so this has also had bad effect on the equality of our system. And but if there's something that we all have learned from this year and this situation, that must be the understanding of the importance of schools and of education. And I think that after this pandemic, I think that the appreciation for education and the appreciation of schools and also teachers' work has risen, because the parents have seen what they have lost when the schools are not open. And I think it's very interesting, and I'm very pleased to have this discussion with you all. Thanks.
The No Labels, No Walls movement supports unions, because unions bring people together to fight for positive change. And this year is no exception. But we can also rely on the things that we already have. Unions have struggled for victories all over the years. So let's go a little bit back in history and think, for example, in Los Angeles, can you name some of the progressive changes that has happened because of union?
Well, the 8-hour workday, that is, that's something remarkable. So we thank unions for providing us the 8-hour workday. Actually being able to have a break during that 8-hour workday is pretty phenomenal as well. there are many things, but when I look at our union, looking at our union for educators, we can look at our collective bargaining agreement, our actual contract. We have to thank unions for that. And I think that is the hugest piece, making sure that workers have protections and have the collective bargaining agreement. And I think that really, that's huge. And those are just a snapshot, but just to take a look at it, that's it. Having a cohesive unit. Jaakko.
Yeah, and I could also mention the same. Those are pretty much the same in Finland. But if I look specifically into teachers' union in Finland, I think that in these days one of the biggest wins historically has also been that we have guaranteed that it's impossible in Finnish legislation to lay off teachers during school breaks. And in these times, so if the municipalities, if they want to lay off teachers, they have to do it during school days, and that makes it pretty much impossible to lay off teachers. And during this time, because of the corona and the economic effects that this pandemic has made, many of the municipalities they are pretty eager to lay off their workers nowadays, but it's very difficult to lay off teachers in Finland because of this. And of course, it's very important because in these days, if you lay off teachers, then you're making even more damage than the corona has made for the pupils. So this is one of the wins. And then one probably a different kind of topic. In Finland, we have only one teachers union, trade union, OAJ. We represent all the teachers. And historically in Finland, the teachers from early childhood education, they had a lower status than other teachers in society. Not, of course, not in our own organization, but in the society. And this has everything to do with that. I think that in society, the society didn't understand the meaning of early childhood education. And it was seen in Finland as only as daycare services, something that society provided for parents so that they could go to work. But we see that it's very important education. It's something for the children, like also other areas of education. And actually, we have influenced our legislation for decades, and now in Finland, early childhood education is a part of our education system. It's not social services or welfare services, it's education services. And this springtime, actually, the early childhood education teachers, they were transferred into teachers' agreement. And this was historical change, and this has been our goal for decades, and now it's true.
Thank you so much. So that was the past victories. What could be the future victories? Where are we heading? What are the challenges at the moment? How about in Los Angeles, Cecily?
Well, the challenges in the moment, I think, have to do with systemic and structural racism. Those are the challenges of the moment, because I mean, we have to get that man out of the White House. That's what I have to say about that. Our president, we got to get him out of the White House. And the reason why I say that is yesterday he spoke about ethnic studies. He spoke about the 1619 Project, which was written by Nicole Hannah-Jones, which is a piece that they did in the New York Post to commemorate and remember, a remembrance of 400 years of slavery, right? 400 years ago, my ancestors came from Africa to the shores of in Virginia, Fort Comfort in Virginia. And that happened 1619. So in 2019, that's 400 years. Yesterday, the president put that research, those articles, he put it down and he said, no educator should be using this type of document or research. He also talked about critical race theory. And I bring that up because that is a challenge to make sure that our educators know that they have the license and the autonomy and the creativity to use their educational prowess, to use their academic freedom to be able to teach our youth and really teach youth, to inspire them, to teach them the truth of the matter and highlight that. So I just highlight that as an issue that we as educational unions are going to have to deal with in talking about being anti-racist and having anti-racist education. But then looking further, we also have to deal with the criminalization of our youth. Our students are being criminalized through policing of students at the school site. That is an issue that we must fight. Now, as far as victories are concerned, we have a huge victory in talking about what we were able to do after our strike, getting the power, the union power from UTLA's members and community. We were able to secure having a nurse every day in our schools. You might think that that's kind of crazy, but some schools had a nurse one day a week. We have kids that fall down all the time, and we need a nurse. So that is something that has come forward. Another thing that I would look to is we were able to erase what we call random searches. And random searches are, in fact, where school police and other folks on campus, my son is in the background, as you can see, because we're home. And so random searches, were randomly searching our students, taking out their things from their backpack to find weapons. And we were able to win that in our strike, to say you can't do that. You cannot search kids. So those are some of the things that I would bring up to speak on today. Jaakko?
Yeah, you, Marcus, asked about the future victories, and I would like to mention something from our campaign for our last parliament elections in Finland, and we had our goals for those elections, and the topic of those goals was that education is the solution, and education and research is the solution. And solution for what? We think that it's the solution for poverty in our society. It's the solution for unemployment. It's the solution for climate change. It's the solution for racism. It's the solution for dropout of the youth. We also have that problem in Finland. So we think that education, research, that's the only solution for these challenges or these problems. And so the future victory that I would like to see is that in Finland, if I look our perspective, I think that the future win would be if education and research would be put in the first place in our society. I think it has been one of the first places in Finland, but it's not the first, because all the political parties, when they give big speeches, every time they talk about education, it's the number one topic in their speeches. But when they make budgets, it's usually in the third or fourth place, and other things are more important. So we would like to see it put that education and research would be put in the first place in also in resources, and then that will lead in better society and better results in all of these goals in Finland. That would be the future win I would like to see.
We have this magnificent opportunity to put down the walls and the labels, but the label here today is unified people for positive change. So what do you think that the international collaboration would bring to the table, and what is happening now in your unions inside United States and internationally, and in Finland and internationally? How can we unify the unions together, the teachers' unions, to support what is happening in Finland and in United States?
You know, and I said it in the opening, we have to be able to have these type of dialogues internationally and nationally, locally and statewide. But having this kind of dialogue where we can exchange ideas, even though I'm here in the morning in Finland, you're there at night. Everything that Jaakko was just talking about, those are things that we experience in our own union. So looking at trade unions and looking at sector workers, we're all working class folks. And what we want is to make sure that education stays on the top, not the bottom of the list. So just this exchange is showing us, and should show the viewers out there, that we're no different. Our union is no different than the union in Finland when it comes to education, and it comes to actually getting what the students need and deserve. So I think more opportunities for us to now be virtually, right, to meet, to have conversations. I think it's going to be really a conversation for us to also, within our unions, continue the political education, because we are fighting the same enemy, maybe in different ways, but the same enemy, because the privatizers don't care about labels. They don't care about walls. They don't care which union. When they talk about the destruction and the dismantling of unions, that's no different than Finland, than in Los Angeles or California for that matter. They are hell-bent on destruction. So we have a job to do to actually break down the walls and communicate and have discourse and dialogue, so that we can go down back to our own unions and say, look, it's no different than Finland and LA. We still have to do this job. And a part of it is the conversations, internationally, nationally, local, and statewide. But the political education, because we're going to have to infuse some leftist ideology when we talk about this, because it's not radical to talk about now healthcare for all, especially now in a global pandemic. I think everyone is saying, it would be good for everyone to be able to have medical care, right? And then how that relates to our kids also. But another thing that I think is missing, and maybe Jaakko can speak to this as well, I think what I want to see more in the conversations and the dialogue I want us to be able to reach out to the youth and ask them what they need. Ask them what are the supports that they want, because youth out here, youth are leading in this moment, especially in this racial reckoning moment as we're trying to eradicate structural and systemic racism. The youth are out there. So my point is, we as trade unionists, as education unionists, as sector workers and working class people, we've got to unite with that group like never before, so that we can push our agenda completely.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, of course, on organizational level, of course, we experts, we who are trade union professionals, we have had this kind of international cooperation for years. But we think in OAJ, we have talked a lot about that we should have this kind of cooperation between regular teachers. So not only us trade union professionals, of course, we meet our colleagues from different countries, and it's very important, and it's every time it's learning opportunity, and I have learned a lot from this kind of cooperation. But the same opportunity should be provided for regular teachers. And in our union, we have promoted this kind of idea and actually arrange this kind of events where teachers they have opportunity to meet with other teachers from around the world, and of course we have used the reputation of Finnish education. For example, OAJ, we have this the largest education event of Northern Europe called Educa in Helsinki every year. We'll see if we have it next January because of the pandemic. Probably we'll have it in the web. But we have this event, and for the last couple of years we also have had this international section of this event. And the idea is to invite teachers from other countries to Finland, and then the teachers of Finland, they can have conversations with them and have this kind of connection and this kind of discussions. And actually, I have sent Markus a little video from Finnish teachers. It was something they talk about their superpowers as teachers, and I believe that Markus has this video there ready if you can show it. It's something from Finnish teachers to everyone, and I think that the teachers around the world probably feel the same.
You can watch the video from our stream from www.nolabelsnowalls.net or from Facebook from our page No Labels, No Walls. So let's go into the video and let's come back to the conversation because it's just the beginning.
Social skills. I think they are the most important skills of the 21st century. Be present, be respectful.
Creativity. I teach teenagers to think, to express themselves, and to get grip of this complex world. To succeed, I really need my creativity.
Pedagogical autonomy helps adapting individually to the specific needs of the children.
Social skills. If some of the leaders of the world would have even part of our social skills, the world would be a much better place to live in.
Trust. When I trust my students, it gives them confidence. And confidence is a road to success.
Research. It's great to always know that I have scientific data to back up the things that we do in my classroom and that they actually work.
Creativity. The atmosphere in my class is cheerful, encouraging and enthusiastic. I believe that is the basis for creativity.
Trust is my superpower. The trust in the present and in the future. The trust I give and the trust that I receive.
Subject knowledge. We take pride in our skill sets. Whether it's music or robotics, it doesn't matter, we excel in it.
I'm expert in my teaching subjects and leading my student groups.
My superpower is humor. Learning should be, and it is fun, especially when there's a little bit humor involved.
Interaction. Good interaction is important for learning, so I am sensitive, warm and positive with children.
Creativity. Creativity is an essential part of teaching and learning, and making it bloom is one of the key elements in Finnish teachers.
Interaction. It's a way for us to build understanding and trust between each other. Without interaction, there wouldn't be much learning either.
Pedagogy. I create learning projects with children. They combine play and exploration with strengths, needs and interests of each child.
Empathy. In my work, I pay attention to every child as an individual. I'm always present for them, help them learn new things and learn to cooperate.
My work is mostly about solving problems, but finding solutions and getting things to work is very satisfying.
Creativity. Things seldom go as planned. You always have to have some aces in your sleeve.
Wow, that was something. A lot of superpowers. What do you think, Cecily? How can we use these superpowers of teachers to make a positive change in the society as a whole?
Now, that was a fantastic video. Fantastic. And to all those educators out there, you're doing amazing, amazing work. Yeah. They are the superheroes that our students are looking up to. And that is the reason why you could see that's the reason why educators come into education, to use those superpowers to build upon ideas and to promote creativity with our students. It's fantastic. And I can see that in my own educators here in Los Angeles, you know, being the second largest teachers union in the country after New York. You know, I think about my teachers and what they have done over the years, and the most impressive thing was them going on strike and us going on strike in 2019. They actually showed their resolve to everyone, because people doubted that teachers would even speak up for themselves and their students. And this resolve really showed them that they do have the power to make positive change, and not only positive change in their classroom with their students, but actual positive change at the district level.
Yeah, I must concur, and actually also in Finland, teachers have they have been like the leading activists in many fields, and we used to say that the biggest party in the Finnish Parliament, it was a couple of years ago, was the Teachers' Party, because from different we have you must know me, we have this multi-party system in Finland, so we have like 15 political parties in our parliament, but from all of these parties the biggest profession group of the Finnish Parliament. It used to be teachers. It's still one of the biggest in our Parliament, and that's very important that teachers are also active politically, and they end up in municipalities boards and also in our national parliament. So we have people who truly understand the meaning of education in our politicians.
I have questions for everybody. We have some educators with us today, and I would like to ask and open the discussion for how to, when unions have these superpowers and the people in the unions have these superpowers, how can we organize people from diverse backgrounds to a common goal? And what are the core principles what do we all need to know in order to be effective? How can we use the union skills and the teacher skills and the children's skills in creating a better society for all?
Well, I think we have to use communication. That's one, because in order to actually have productive dialogue, we must be able to communicate. And so that is one. The other part is being creative and not thinking in a box, right? Yeah. So here in Los Angeles, or not even Los Angeles, I mean, around the world, we understand what that means in just being in a box. So let me explain. You know, when things are just so structured and I only can think of this way to get, you know, an answer or things. Now with this pandemic, what this pandemic is showing us, that we have to think outside of the box. We have to do things that we probably never would have thought of before. Like, who would have thought that we could host a festival virtually?
Yeah.
Right. So those are the things that I'm thinking of, just being creative.
Yeah. And if I may continue, I think that we have to be proactive, not only reactive. If we only reacting, then we're too late. We have to be proactive, and we have to think that what's the next big thing that is coming for teachers or for education, and then we have to be proactive and try to change the world, try to change the education in a direction that we see that it's good, and of course then cooperation. You have to be united to make change. So in Finland, of course, we are the voice of teachers, but if we only talk about things that interest teachers, then there's no influence, because if we only talk about that this is difficult for teachers, then only the teachers they clap their hands and say that now you said the right thing, Jaakko. But we have to talk about things that interest everybody, and that's the reason why our organization, of course, we don't hide that we are teachers trade union. Of course, that's our main task. But still, we are also one of the strongest voices in Finland who talk about education and defend the children's and the youth's right for education and equality in education. So we have also this wider goal. And actually, we just decided about our new strategy for OHA, and the vision for OHA in that strategy is that we will, if we succeed, we will make Finland the best place to teach, research, and learn in the world. And of course, the best place to teach, that's for teachers, but then also the best place to learn, that's for pupils and students, and for Finland. So we have this wider goal also.
I'm hailing from Kukunori, which is an umbrella organization of 41 organizations working with mental health, disability, and civil rights. And one of the key elements is well-being of teachers, well-being of students. And the school meals are one of the key elements in supporting the children and the whole society. Some people say that we are 3 meals away of a revolution. So it's very important that we have everything we need for the children, but as well as the well-being of the teachers. Cecily, what is the situation now there in Los Angeles?
Yes. So as far as feeding children, I mean, we have food deserts. So we have places, depending on where you live in the Los Angeles area, there are not grocery stores and so forth, right? So you have food, what is called food deserts. But then you also have, places in the wealthier neighborhoods that have a lot of grocery stores and such. So in the lower socioeconomics, we're seeing that insecurity, food insecurity. But as far as children and meals are concerned, and that's in this pandemic, what has really happened is the fact that our students depend on school meals. A student can go to school and have breakfast, lunch, and then a snack, also what is called supper meals for the longevity. And because we've been out, our district had to figure out how creatively we can get meals to kids during this time. And what has happened is it's not only our district feeding children of our district, but also just feeding everyone. So it's become that. At May, we were at something like 30 million meals served in Los Angeles from our school district. It's now at 55 million meals, and there is no stigma. There is no like bring your lunch card or anything like that. It's just come and get the meals. And what they do is they give the meals for the whole day and for however many children you have, and then so forth. And what we had said is school hours right now are 9 to 1:15. And so if that is the case, we wanted to make sure that students were able to grab meals prior to the start of the day, because we know that having a meal is the most nourishing time right before school begins. And so they changed the hours to make sure that our students were getting the food that they needed to start their day. So I am very impressed with our school district right now around making sure that our students have the meals that they need.
We have had just the same discussion in Finland during springtime about school meals, and we also have this kind of arrangements. So during those times when schools were closed and pupils were at home studying via internet, then the municipalities and the schools, they provided school meals in a way that families could come to school and pick up their school meals for a week or something like this, because of course the school meals, it comes from our legislation, and the municipality have to provide school meal every day. But another topic, also in Finland, actually the role of our schools in children's well-being and also childcare services, the time of distance learning also emphasized the meaning of schools in this manner, because during springtime, actually the number of reports for childcare services that dropped during springtime, even if children were at home with their parents. And actually, this was very alarming, and it showed that actually most of our childcare reports come from teachers who see that there's something wrong or something not right with the situation of specific children. And actually, during springtime in Finland, the number of childcare reports, it dropped when the teachers, they didn't see their children, their pupils at school. So this was one of the main reasons why actually our government was rushing our return into schools and back there at schools. Of course, at start, our organization, we were opposing this because of our members who were very worried about returning to schools. But now the situation with the pandemic in Finland is such that we think and have seen that until now it has been very safe to be back at schools. But of course we have to follow what the situation will be later this fall.
No labels, no walls is a movement that moves. So we have a future where we are heading. And I was thinking that what kind of ideas do you have for future festivals? How can we collaborate not only during the festivals, but also during the so-called normal life that we have now? How can we meet? How can we collaborate? How can we learn and share?
Thank you, Marcus, for that question. I think, like I said, one of the ways that we can collaborate would be using this platform, right? Because we're unsure of what's happening in for the pandemic. So I think that's one of the pieces, being able to come into a format like this. I think even something where we set up our teachers from across the state, for me, across California, to come together and meet with folks internationally, maybe through a webinar, where we can also, and I don't know how to do this, but I think it can be done, have breakout rooms. And everyone have like maybe 1 or 2 questions. And if we have the capability, then we can actually have that on the ground conversation where we can actually break down the walls, right? And we can be looking at Finnish teachers. We can look at, Oakland teachers to be able to say, like, what are you doing in your classroom? Like, if we want to actually talk about pedagogy, we can talk about that, or we can actually talk about how we are thinking creatively and proactively, as Jaakko said, to actually talk about what is down the road, right? So I want us to do that. Those kinds of engagements, maybe a book study would be good. We all get the same book and start to really have dialogue and conversation around a book to really change the way that we are teaching with our babies. I think that is going to be so important. And I don't think that we should wait a year to have an engagement. I think we should have smaller engagements during the course of the year, just so that we can come together and meet and dialogue. Because all of us right now in this session, in this pandemic, are doing crisis distance teaching. Everyone is, right? We're doing virtual teaching. Maybe someone, out of the Finnish teachers could then say, well, I tried this with my group. This was really successful, and being able to share best practices in this kind of time, learning from others. To me, that is the best way that educators have that power, is to share their creative knowledge back and forth. Also creating on Facebook groups, like two of our educators created distance learning educators. It's an open Facebook group, and anyone from around the world can join, where they're sharing best practices and sharing creative tasks that they're using, and they can ask for help in there. That's what this kind of time is for, to be able to cross-pollinate our work in this time.
And I think that the problem with these webinars compared to on-place seminars is that we don't have mingling and small talk and changing calling cards or something like this. And actually, I think that in this kind of webinars, we should also have some sort of means, and I think it's very easy to do it digitally, to change contact information and based on some topics, and then we could continue the discussion, and teachers could continue this discussion during school year and change information, change best practices and so on. And I think that would be opportunity for learning for everyone.
So let's have an open cafe for mingling and chatting in 3 weeks. So no labels, no walls, invites the Finnish teachers and the teachers from United States together to have a small discussions, like Cecily said, sort of using breakout rooms. So it's more smaller group discussion. And next year, like Jaakko mentioned, that you are arranging this big meetups. So let's create as big meetup as we can using the digital platform. So that's how we can engage more people.
And I just wanted to add, Michael from Strindberg Laboratory in Los Angeles, you know, the action we started, No Labels, No Walls, Action Mondays. And Action Mondays is based on the stress test, Cecily, that you developed, you were using leading up to the strike that you guys all did. So I think it's so perfect, because if we can have these smaller meetings, and then Jaakko obviously let us know, and Cecily, your schedule, inviting at least some teachers that can do it. It happens at 9 a.m. Because then the time difference isn't so great. But and it's up to you. It doesn't have to necessarily be 3 weeks, but if we can lead up and have these conversations, sort of like mimicking the stress test, and then having, when they all meet, they know each other. I think that would be a really nice tool, how to use digital platform with an in-person platform. And that was really me and Marcus and Mehdi and everybody's goal of getting this group together today, was that next step. So, because I think there's so much to learn as an American going to Finland, seeing their school systems compared to here. So anyways, I just want to bring that up and then hear your thoughts based on, I guess, your own tools that you've used as unions to organize. Is that something that you think is a smart way to do? And then are you all willing to do that? And like, how long would you need to organize like an action Monday? Because we do it every Monday. And that's my question.
So Jaakko, you're an expert in digitalization. What do you recommend?
I don't have a fast proposition for this. I have to think about it. I don't know.
Perhaps we just do it and experiment.
Yeah.
Very good. And now we have some time for questions and comments. And Dushika, please, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dušica Božević. I'm a heritage language teacher from Finland. And when we talk about future fights and future victories, I would like to propose some ideas. And Yeah. So I like 2 years ago, we founded an association of heritage language teachers, and we really needed it. And it was a little bit surprising that it didn't exist before. And it turned out that many of our teachers, even though we teach in the public Finnish school, that we don't have an access to the teachers union because there is a minimum amount of teaching hours a week needed to join the union. So many of our teachers, like I wouldn't be able to join it. Luckily, I'm a former full-time university lecturer, so this is when I got in. But I spent now years teaching 6 hours a week in 3 towns. Altogether 6 hours, and I wouldn't be able to join the union of teachers. So I would like to see more protection for heritage language teachers and also teachers with small amount of hours, because it's of course not our choice to have so few lessons a week. And what I would also like to see is more diversity in Finnish educators like community, because Finnish school is promoting multilingualism and multiculturalism, translanguages, and Finnish school recognizes diversity among pupils. But we don't have it so much among teachers. As you could see from the previous video, everyone's mother tongue was Finnish and not even Swedish, which is another official language of Finland. And I would like to get to see more chances for teachers of like other background, not just Finnish, to get more like work and to be accepted as equal and to have recognized qualifications. Because like if you teach, for example, a language that is not taught at university in Finland, then you're automatically non-qualified teacher. So like just to take my case, but that works also for all Arabic teachers or all Somali teachers or all I don't know, let's say Albanian teachers. So I teach Serbo-Croatian. So we are all automatically non-qualified, no matter that we finished completed studies in that language and that we completed Finnish pedagogical studies. So we receive salaries of non-qualified teachers just because we can't be, how to say, like equalized to anyone in Finland, educated in Finland. So like more diversity, more equality between teachers also, not just recognizing diversity among students. That would be my proposal, my goal. And this is what our association is fighting for.
Thank you, Dušica. Jaakko, would you like to comment?
Yeah, actually, I've heard, of course, many times of this proposition. And actually that is one of our goals, to have education for every teacher task in Finnish schools. And actually we have had a model to on how to attain qualification also for those subjects who are not one of our common subjects, because we only have teacher education for those subjects which are common for all the pupils. So those subjects where there is no teacher education in Finland, you cannot have the same qualification, but on the other hand, there is no qualification requirement for these teacher tasks. And actually we have a proposition on how to manage this, but these qualification requirements are very slow to change. But that's actually one of our goals. And also another one, actually we have talked that we should have much more diversity in our teacher force in Finland. And actually we have we have made several propositions on how to help, or that's not the right word, how to support also those students who have come to Finland from other countries to apply for teacher education, and what could be the several parts to becoming teacher. Also if you have studies from other countries and so on.
I just wanted to add that, I mean, Finland is so progressive, and I don't doubt that it's gonna stay the kind of leading country in education. But just wanted to say that like there is also something we can acquire from American teaching community, and that's diversity. That's definitely the diversity.
And
Cecily, would you like to comment on
Cecily,
this?
do you know about the program of the teachers, first language teachers, what they do? Because it's really unique. As an American, I had no idea about it. I don't know, Larissa, do you want to really just like in 1 minute just kind of say what you all do? Because it doesn't. I don't think it exists, Cecily, in America.
Hi, I've just had, where is my phone? Yeah, I've just had another meeting here, and I could join you just here. I can see at least 3 members of our board here, teachers of native languages of Finland. What we do, yes, we teach children their first language, and children get 2 hours per week to be able to study their own mother tongue, and during the school day, it's not a Sunday school, and it is seen as a supportive subject that helps to support students' development and yes, creative thinking, all that, very important.
Yeah, I wanted to add that also what is emphasized is that students are supported to acquire knowledge in whatever language. So like they are supposed to learn how to study in their mother tongue, that it doesn't stay just their kitchen language. It stays their learning language. And the other thing that is, I think, super important is that they learn to see things from multiple perspectives. So to follow media, like even different than Finnish media. I mean, I want to say, even though like it wouldn't be on the line with Finnish politics, like it's important to learn to follow different perspectives and to learn to assess the quality of the source.
And it's their heart language, the language that they think and feel in.
And cognitive concepts and everything. Yes, and then they learn how to switch from language to another language, and it's not really that important in which language do they get the information. Mother tongue is seen, so in this point of view, students' native language is seen as a very important basis for the students to acquire further knowledge in all different subjects. And sometimes, if needed, our native language teachers also work as supportive teachers within the school building, so they can teach like mathematics or something and help out students to understand the subject in their own mother tongue. Depends on the school.
There's a lot to learn from language teachers, and these skills could be incorporated into the collaboration between the unions somehow to create multiple perspectives so we can communicate and understand and trust. And another way is theater. So we have Mr. Ian Ruskin here on the call. What do you think about this? You're also an educator, and what is the future of unions and theater, for example?
You're on mute, Ian.
There we go. I wasn't expecting a question. The future of theater and unions. I think one of the things about the pandemic has been that the way that actors normally think of working, which is for most actors trying to get work in television and film and so on, has changed because almost all productions are shut down. And I think I'm lucky that I've been focused on performing in places, including schools, for a long time. But I think a lot of actors are beginning to think about other ways to work, other ways to communicate with their communities, not just on television, but maybe doing live performances, maybe going into schools. A lot of people I know are using Zoom for doing play readings of new writings. So I think this is really, it's in a way it's forcing actors to, as it is many people, to look at new ways of communicating. And I think that's really good. And the other thing is that I think, I'm sure Cecily would agree with me, that I think there is in America, there is a hopeful revival of the interest in unions. That one of the things the pandemic has done is, again, I think Cecily said this, is to show the massive inequalities in American society. And I think more people are beginning again to think of unions as a way to deal with that, to reduce that inequality. That unions are not bad things, they're good things. So I think that combination is very helpful. Certainly it encourages me to go on with what I'm doing, which now includes developing lesson plans with the American Federation of Teachers, which is something I've never done before. Since I can't perform in schools, I have to find new ways to get the message out, basically. So that's what I'm doing, but thank you.
Jaakko, please.
And it's very interesting because even if we wouldn't have this pandemic, for the last 10, 20 years, I think that working life as a whole has become more uncertain. It's changing more rapidly, and I think that even the basic structures of working life, agreements and so on, they are challenged more aggressively all the time. So I think that even if we wouldn't have this pandemic, I think that actually the meaning of unions, and the reason why you should be involved in a union, it's and the demand that's even higher than it has been for decades now. And at the same time, I think that nowadays people are in Finland, especially, people are usually less organized in different organizations, also in unions. And that's not so much the thing with teachers union, but altogether with unions, we have less people organized nowadays. And it's also more difficult to commit people to work as volunteers for unions and have them come to take part of boards of unions or local associations and so on. People are willing to commit for causes for shorter times. So they are very eager to take part of some Facebook group or some project or some cause for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but they don't probably, maybe they don't want to take part of organizations board or something like this traditional ways. And that's the reason why we in our organization, we are all the time trying to think different means of how our members and our teachers can be involved in our work. So they must have opportunities to take on some cause and be involved in a way for a shorter period of time, and then they can do something different for a while and then return and they take another sprint, and so therefore we must have our organization must be lighter, so people have more opportunities to take these probably smaller commitments for shorter periods of time.
Thank you, Jaakko. Michael.
I know, because in Finland there's such a different reality happening in America. And Cecily, you know, how you talked about the emergency situation. And Jaakko, you're talking about obviously, you know, different type of emergency. Yeah. But the problem that, and Cecilia, this is for you and Jaakko, is how do you get people to get together when it's always an emergency situation? And, you know, the emergency can be in different degrees, but I've been alive now for 36 years, and it's always been, we're always in a little bit of a crisis. And obviously things have gotten deteriorated to a point now here, you know, in the United States and Los Angeles. But I guess if we don't, and I guess not just getting together, but how can we start to really dream together? Because unless we start using our imagination and creativity, how can we really, you know, because we can't keep fixing a broken system. I guess that's my thing. So I guess that's my question to you. And then going back to the other thing is, how can we really take action together? Because we can have these talks, which is great, the knowledge, but then how can we really take a unified action? And what are the steps needed? And because you guys are all the experts. I mean, you've been doing it, and that's my question.
Well, I wouldn't say that we're all the experts, because the experts are really the rank and file members, right? The folks that are on the ground are the actual experts. The people that are actually doing crisis teaching right now, those are the experts, right? They're learning as they go because they've never had to do some type of online platform. So I want to make sure that we know that educators take the forefront. They are the backbone of the unions that we see as of right now. As far as making sure that it's not all talk and rhetoric, right? Because that's what the other side does. They do all the talking, and then it's like, okay, so then what? Now what? We actually have to be, and Jaakko said that earlier, proactive, right? We know that there are many fights, and like you just stated, Michael, that there are many crises, right? And there are different crises, and then we have this response, and then there's another one, and then we got this response. And what I want to say is we can't be transactional with those type of situations, right? So if there's an immediate need, like for us right now, it's called displacements, where it's like a total reorganization. We know this happens every year, but we're in a pandemic. And so trying to take teachers from students and switch them in different places, or kind of like laying them off, is ridiculous. And so that is a crisis moment that we had to like jump on right away. We had to like have a rapid response, and some of those things are the rapid response. But then how do we build up? And it's going to take us meeting with community organizations, and some that frankly haven't been supportive of us in the past, right? We have to kind of put that to the wayside to say, do you agree on these key issues? Well, we're going to fight together on these key issues, and go ahead and do that. Not saying, oh, I'm not going to do it because we didn't get along. We have to go across the aisle to do that. I think it's also going to necessitate us having these structured conversations to actually imagine what is possible. You said it yourself. If we are trying to reimagine, re-envision something different, because I'm going to tell you, the status quo from what worked, you know, last year, the year before, 10 years before. It doesn't work right now because we're in a damn pandemic. And so all of the cards are thrown off the table. And this is the time that, you know, like what Ian is saying, like this is the time to be the most creative with ourselves, to do the most good with this pandemic. I always liken this pandemic as the crossroads of hope and horror, right? For us here in the United States, the horror of another 4 years of the president. We cannot, I'm going to tell you right now, United States will not be able to function in 4 more years if we get this guy back in office. We won't, because of the racial divide that he's creating, the not funding our schools, and the list goes on and on. But there is, at that crossroads, there's hope, right? Hope of a new beginning, hope of us being able to cross-pollinate, have these conversations, have these dialogues. And I'm gonna just say it may be revolutionary, but I think it's time for a general strike. Like, we just need to go on with a general strike, have a national strike, and then really shut it down all across the globe. Then people will actually know what we are talking about and see the importance not only of education, but every single sector worker, because in this economic abyss comes what? It comes on the back of the working class. So if we were able to pull off a general or a national strike, people would not know what to do. So maybe that's the next step, Michael. Maybe that's the next step, coming across all sectors to actually have a national general strike to say, shut it down because enough is enough.
That's great. Thank you. Jaakko, you want to?
Yeah. Of course, I don't have anything to add to your situation there in the US, but of course you Michael asked about taking action, and of course there's several types of action that we can make, because of course for a couple of years now our former government it was trying to break the unions opportunities to make agreements through legislation, and then of course that was topic, and all the unions we were demonstrating in our squares, market squares in several cities. That was different kind of situation, but now during this pandemic in Finland, I talked earlier that we have to be proactive, and we have to also give the solutions. And actually in Finland, also the administration, they haven't had any solutions for this pandemic. This is new for everyone. And actually we have been in the table thinking how we should manage our distance learning, how we should manage our schooling during this very difficult time. And I think that's the means how we have been able to influence so that this very difficult situation has worked out in the best way for our members. It's been very difficult, but it's been the best way in this situation. And still we are having this kind of discussions, for example, on how we should go forward if we have to go to distance learning again nationally. We have propositions and we have discussions how we should manage that in that situation if we have to go back to that. But it's we'll see in the future. But I think that the key issue is cooperation and collaboration, and then also being proactive and giving the solutions, not only breaking or opposing.
And I know we have to go, but I just want to, I'm wrapping up our time, but so there's two, I think I mean, what I've heard and, you know, what I'm sure everybody's heard, and going forward, if we're going to have this collaboration, if that's the need that we're speaking about, I guess on a worker level, and then also on learning best practices on an education level. So maybe if we do these Action Mondays, which we're going to send Marcus and I will send an email introducing all Cecilia and Jaakko by email, but maybe we can then talk about these things and then develop. So hopefully next year, whatever that turns out, that action will be, you know, we can lead up to it. Does that seem something that at least maybe there's interest in pursuing?
Of course, it's interesting. Yeah.
Cecilia, okay, fantastic.
Yes,
Marcus?
you know, I do feel like it is something interesting, but I would like us to really make sure that we have a brainstorm, right? Brainstorm the ideas, because I think the biggest one right now is the one that has to do with crisis distance learning, right? Because that affects us both. And so looking at best practices and looking at challenges, right? Because we're all using this online platform. If we actually start to brainstorm conversation and see what is the need for educators, what do folks on the ground actually want? Because you don't want to do something that folks are like, that wasn't useful. So we actually want to know what would be useful and productive for our rank and file members, and then be able to move conversations after that.
And of course, it's very, very important to understand that the pandemic situation is also very different nowadays in Finland as it is in US. And nowadays in Finland, we have probably the lowest number of cases in Europe nowadays, and that's the reason why we are able now to keep the schools open, and distance learning is only a fallback option now. If we have to go there, then we'll go, but it's only fallback. And now I think there's 3 schools or 4 schools in Finland that are now doing distance learning these days. And in the springtime, all the schools were teaching distance learning classes.
It was very fast, 1.5 hours together at the No Labels, No Walls plus We Are One 2020 festival. I would like to thank you, Cecily and Jaakko, for this conversation, and thank you all the participants here in the conversation. The conversation continues and the action continues. So let's tune into the festival program, and I hope to see all of you there. We have a very interesting program today and tomorrow and next year. So heipat täältä Suomesta. Greetings from Finland.
Millie had a question. Millie, did you want to ask something? You're on mute, Millie.